Regardless of your level, search skills are the most important skill upstream of all other hard and soft skills. Anytime you learn something, you're applying a search process. Search skills refer to the acquisition of new knowledge and the traversal of existing knowledge, both. So search is broader than just learning. It also includes looking things up. As a student, this obviously is really helpful to help accelerate your learning and unblock you as a mid-level developer, so you don't need to wait on other people. You can go get the information yourself. And then on the staff plus side of things, whenever you're engaged in leadership, influence, case making, solving ambiguous problems, these are all matters of acquiring information before somebody else does, and then making the case, an evidence-based case based on information that you have that others may not have. It's going to unlock all of those capabilities. Super, super effective at acquiring new skills and solving ambiguous problems. So tap the comment and you can see the 7 core search skills in priority order. And so you'll try one, and if it doesn't work, you'll fall back to the next one. And that works in the majority of cases. In this video, I'm talking about a case where that doesn't work. And so in this video, I'm talking about internal search in a company, internal corporate search. I'll just give 2 examples of established search strategies that don't work well in 2024, probably in 2025, things may change in further years. Inside of a company, I'll give examples why the usual case doesn't work, and then we'll move on to what does work. So in the usual case in 2024, I recommend starting with a large language model. Large language models are pre-trained on the internet, so it can save you time compared to the legacy approach of going directly to Google and looking through the pages yourself. The problem is that internal to a company in 2024, it is not a common practice to have an internal language model trained on company data. Again, 2027 or years in the future, maybe that will become common practice, but for this year, probably for next year, you're going to need to fall back to other patterns. Similarly, unless you're Google, you won't have an internal form of Google. Major tech companies like Amazon, Microsoft will have internal search engines. Smaller companies, mid-sized companies typically lack these, and you may need to navigate multiple disconnected partial knowledge graphs. And so let's transition into what you'll be doing in a company, which is the alternative to using Google or a large language model. 3 things that you should do to optimize your internal corporate search compared to the normal search strategies. One is understand your Google alternatives. These are the standard knowledge stores at your company and their search syntax per tool. You'll typically need to navigate multiple disconnected knowledge graphs instead of a single one-stop shop. Second, in addition to understanding known trusted sites, which is a standard strategy, you now want to understand known trusted documents, teams, and individuals. So understand the subject matter experts at your company for each domain. There may be a formal matrix. If there's not, you can create one of these, and that is a service that you can offer. Third is you want to adapt your search strategy to the culture of your company. So you want to understand the communication culture at your company. This will specifically impact your time to escalation. So some companies will want you to do more upfront work before you bother senior engineers. Other companies will want you to do less upfront work, and they will be over-communication centered cultures. Depending on the team that you're at, you may or may not have a senior engineer on your team. It may go from you to a staff, or from you to a principal, or from you to a director, or from you to a entry-level manager. And so knowing the level of the individual that is next up in the food chain compared to you, you can now assess how much upfront work you should do, because you can assess how valuable their time is. And as a rule, the more valuable their time is, the more upfront work you should do. Common knowledge stores will include Confluence, or more generally an internal wiki, Jira for task management. This is also in the Atlassian stack, or more generally, whatever your task manager is, GitHub, and Slack or Teams, or more generally the chat tool at the company. Some companies will chat rather freely in public channels, so you'll want to get familiar with what team is related to what channel and then search in the chat tool. Other companies will chat less in the chat tool, and they may use direct messages more, or they may refer to Google Docs or Confluence or an external knowledge store external to the chat tool. You'll want to understand the key vocabulary that's used to search, and then you'll want to understand the sort of information hierarchy. So that, say, if I go to Jira, I may know this new product phrase, bologna sandwiches. My company is starting to sell bologna sandwiches, but it's a new product phrase. I'm the first one to use a ticket that includes the substring bologna phrase, or bologna sandwiches. But I know the information architecture of my company. I know our verticals, what product lines we have, what teams we have. And so I know that bologna sandwiches are associated to my team, which is the food service team. And so if I can't find a document on bologna sandwiches, at least I can find the team Slack channel or the product manager or the engineering manager for the food service team. Or I can find the Confluence space for the food service team. So understanding this knowledge graph that's unique to my company will allow me to perform better searches, in addition to understanding the communication culture at my company. Hope these tips were helpful. If there's anything else I can help with, drop a comment. Again, do review the generic search strategies, because the idea here is that we start with those and then we override with these 3 additional practices that I've given you. These 3 practices alone are not enough. One last tip, here's a bonus. Some companies do allow you to use ChatGPT. So check if there's a generative AI policy at your company, and you may be able to use it. And I would encourage you to practice generification and obfuscation when you prompt GPT. And I would encourage you to disable training data in your settings. So if you get ChatGPT, the premium version, you can go to your user settings and disable chat training purposes. If you're using a language model for a commercial purpose, it's really smart to disable training and practice generification and obfuscation. Obfuscation means whatever question that I'm asking it, give it the minimal information it needs to answer my question and delete the bits that it doesn't need to know about. This is something you would practice if you were to make a GitHub issue or a Stack Overflow question anyway. You would be asked to create a minimal reproducible example, minimal, devoid of extraneous information that just takes people time to read, and it sort of is low value information. It distracts from answering the problem. It's easier for a human to get the right answer if they can quickly read through the whole problem and every bit of information is relevant. The same is true for a language model, and further, there is a security benefit. By removing this information, you're lowering your security exposure. That's obfuscation, and then there's generification, which is if you have a company tool, say I have a service, it's called the Sonic service. Let's use the generic term instead of the internal company term. There's a security benefit and there is a context benefit to the language model. So maybe the Sonic microservice is generically a kind of Flask service, and it's launched on a Lambda. And so if I talk to a language model, hey, can you help me out with this problem that I'm seeing with my Flask Lambda microservice? Not only is that more secure, we're not exposing that my company has these internal services with these particular names. It's more secure, but also it's more relevant, and I'll get better answers because ChatGPT knows what a Flask microservice and what a Lambda are. It doesn't know what the Sonic service internal to your company is. Does that make sense? So again, only do these like kind of bonus category 4 language model search tips if your company allows you to use generative AI. If your company doesn't have a generative AI policy, 1, you can help craft one. And 2, you might fall back to more general policies, like your company may have a social media usage policy, what you're allowed to post on social media. And then check with your manager, check with your director, VP, and so on, because often you can carry that over. Well, if I could post it on Twitter, I can probably submit it to a language model. Check with them, but that's sort of a rule of thumb that you can propose and get approval for. Hope you found this interesting. Drop a like, follow the page. See you next time.